Hey guys, what's up? I'm Nikhil, your TEADpad instructor, and in this After Effects tutorial, I'm going to show you guys how to create a really cool looking 3D Earth HUD animation in After Effects using Trapcode Form. So without any further ado, let's get straight into After Effects and get started. Alright, so here we are in After Effects, and here I have two black and white images of a map which you can easily find on Google. You can just type in Earth outline or Earth PNG. You'll get the map and you just need to download it, or you can also get it into the project file of the tutorial. Alright, so let's start by creating a new composition. This is gonna be full HD 1920 into 1080, this one, and let's make this 30 frames, and let's rename the composition to main comp, and I'll make this 10 seconds long and hit OK. Alright, so here we are into our new composition, and let's start by creating a new solid. So hit Ctrl Y on the keyboard to create a new solid, and I'm just gonna call this BG for background. Then I'm gonna hit Ctrl D to duplicate the solid, and let's rename this to Earth. Alright, and let's drag in both our images into the composition and hide them, and select the Earth layer, and let's add the Trapcode Form effect. So I'm just gonna type in form. There we go. So it's gonna basically generate some really simple particles into 3D space. So if I create a new camera really quick and switch into the camera view, you can see we have this really simple looking particles by which we can create some really advanced looking geometries in 3D space. So it opens up a lot of possibilities of creating some really nice looking motion graphics. So for now, I'm just gonna delete the camera. I'm gonna add it later on. Let's start with building our main animation. So let's go into the base form, and I'm gonna change the base form from box grid to sphere layer, and we have 3 sphere layers. So as you can see, we have 3 layers of sphere. So I'm gonna set this to 1. And for the size, I'm going to go with something like maybe 800. Okay. And particles in X, I'm going to set this to 300. And same for the particles in Y. You can play around with different settings depending on what kind of look you're going to go with. But 300 looks pretty good to me, as you can see. Let's go into the particles, and let's bring down the sphere feather to 0. Let's bring down the size of the particles to something like 0.8, 0.7. We can change it later on as well. And then I'm going to go into the layer maps and into the size. Change the layer size to Earth PNG. And now you can see we have this really nice particles emitting only through the alpha of this PNG. So if I follow this up, so where the portion is white or where the image is white, the particles are going to get generated only in that particular area. So I'm going to hide this for now, and there we have our Earth. Let's create a new camera. 28mm looks good. Hit OK, and as you can see, it's looking very good. We can switch into our camera view and rotate the Earth and see it from different directions. So for now, I'm just going to leave it right over here. Let's go and modify our scene. Let's rename this to land. Alright, and maybe I'll increase the particles a bit. So let's go into the base form, and I'm going to increase the particle count a bit more. Just like so. Yep, looking very cool. Let's go into particles, and I'm going to set this to maybe 0.5 or something. I think that is a bit too small, maybe 1. That is a bit too big, so maybe let's go with 0.7 or something like that. Yep, this is looking nice. So now what I can do is let's select the layer, make sure the effect is selected, go into edit and duplicate, and let's rename this to outline. Go into the layer maps and change the size layer map from Earth PNG to Earth outline. So now the particles are only gonna get emitted from the outlines. So now what I need to do is go into the rendering of the first effect and set the blending mode to normal, and same for this one as well. So we can see both our layers. So let's go into the particles, and this time I'm going to change the size of the particles to 1. And also I'm going to increase the number of particles in X and Y. So I'm going to increase this really high. Maybe something like, let's go with something like 600. Yep, that is looking really cool. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to duplicate this again. So select the land, go into edit and duplicate, and then go into the base form and increase the size to around 1100. That is 1100. That is looking pretty good. Maybe I'll make it 1200, a bit more bigger. Yep, this looks much better. And then what I can do is, again, I'm going to duplicate this, but before that, let's rename this pretty quick to, let's go this outland, and then duplicate it. So hit Control D, and this time I'm going to rename this to lines. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into the layer maps and remove this and set this to none. And then let's go and bring down the particles in Y all the way up to 10. So we get this kind of lines, which looks kind of interesting to me. So I'm going to bring them right over here, just like so, and increase the particles in X so that we get kind of a line, you know, kind of a streak of line, which looks pretty interesting. And for the particle size, I'm gonna set it down to maybe 0.5 or something like that. Yep, this is looking very cool. Now let's go ahead and color the complete scene. So to color this, what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a new composition, and this is going to be our color map. So let's rename this to color_map. Let's create a new solid. So hit Control Y to create a new solid, and let's call this fractal. And let's add a fractal noise effect to this. Then I'm going to change the fractal type to swirly and bring up the complexity a bit, just like so, maybe around 8 or something. Also, we can also play around with the contrast a bit just to make it more interesting, maybe something like that, and play around with the brightness like so. And for coloring this, I'm going to add a tint. So change the black to something like a really nice blue color. And for the white, I'm going to go with kind of a purplish color, something like this. Let's make this a darker blue, something like that. And then we can change this later on as well, so we don't need to go into, you know, too much detail. So now what we need to do is go into the main composition and drag in the color map composition below. Hide this, we don't need to see it. Go into the earth layer, go into land, and then let's go into layer maps, and where it says color alpha, I'm going to go right over here and select the color map. So now you can see the particles are getting its color from the color map that we created. So it's really cool and interesting way of coloring the particles. So I can anytime go back into color map and maybe change the color if I want to. So I can just you know tweak it and maybe set this to orange, and it's going to get updated right over here. So I'm going to leave it at blue and purple, which looks pretty interesting to me. So let's go into the earth layer and let's change the color of the outland as well. Actually, let's go into layer map, color alpha, and set this to color map, just like so. And for the lines, I'm gonna select a particular color that is a blue color, just like that. And same for the outline as well. So let's go into particles and change the color to a blue color, just like that, maybe a lighter blue or something. And let's go into the color map. Maybe I'll set the purple one to kind of a lighter purple and make it a bright blue, just like so. You can also play around again with the complexity, or you can also go into transform and play around with the scale to get a more dispersed look, as you can see. So I'm gonna make it really high, maybe something like that. Yep, pretty cool. Set this to full actually, so we can see it more properly. Alright, so we have our scene ready. So now let's play around with the animation and add some really nice and cool stuff to the complete scene. So what I'm going to do is let's go into the layer, earth layer, and let's duplicate the outland. So I'm going to duplicate the land. So hit Control D to duplicate it. Alright, and then I'm going to go into disperse and twist and disperse the particles just a little bit, like so. You can see we have this really interesting looking particles right over here. I'm going to turn off, I'm going to select the camera pretty quick and hit A 2 times and turn off the depth of field so we can see the particles more properly. Let's go into the earth, and then let's go into particles and increase the particle randomness all the way up to 100, so we get a little bit of more randomness into the dispersed particles. So now let's animate the dispersion. So I'm going to set this to somewhere around, let's say 10 or something like that, and create a keyframe. Go to, I guess, 9 seconds and set this to around maybe 25 or something like that. So we have a continuous animation of the particles getting dispersed from the land, as you can see. Really interesting. Also for the particle size, I'm going to increase this a little bit. So maybe let's make this maybe 1.2 or something. That looks more interesting. And for the color, I can, actually go into the layer maps and set the color map to none. So we get white particles, and then go into the particles and change the color to a really nice blue color. Or maybe purple color. Let's go with a purple color actually. Something like so. So it's looking very, very nice, as you can see. Now let's go into the camera. Bring this below. Hit A 2 times and turn on the depth of field. And now we can go ahead and start setting up our camera angle. So the first angle is gonna be, actually go into the camera view first, and I'm gonna place it somewhere around there. Zoom in a little, just like so, maybe somewhere around there. And then I'm gonna play around with the aperture. So I'm gonna increase this to somewhere around 120, and for the blur level I'm gonna go with 150. And then I'm going to play around with the focus distance unless I find the focal point that I want to focus on. So I'm going to focus on something somewhere around there. So I'm going to start from somewhere around here. And let's create a keyframe on the focus distance and the position. Hit U so we can see both keyframes go to around 3 seconds. And then I can just move the camera around a little bit. So I'm gonna just move it to the right, just like so. So we have a little camera animation, and with that I want the earth to keep on rotating. So for that, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna create a new null object, make it 3D, and then let's call this camera control, and parent the camera to the null object. Now if you don't see the parent option, you can go right over here, right click, go into columns and turn on parent option. So let's go into camera control and hit R to bring down the rotation, and then I can rotate the earth just like so. So very, very simple. Let's create a new keyframe on the Y rotation. Go to 10 seconds and let's rotate this to -90. So let's see the speed of the animation, and I think it's a bit too fast. So I'm gonna go right over here and set this to maybe -50 or something. Oh, let's set this to -50. I want very subtle animation, just like so. Now what I can do is let's select the camera, hit U so we can see the keyframes go into 3-second mark, and I'm gonna play around with the focus distance. I'm gonna increase this to focus just a bit more forward, just like so. So with the animation, our focus distance changes as well, as you can see. Pretty cool. So there we have our first animation. Now let's go at 3 seconds, select the camera layer and hit Ctrl Shift D to split the layer. Hit U and remove the keyframes and create new keyframes, just like that. And also I'm going to hit A 2 times and turn off the depth of field just for now. And then let's select a different angle, maybe something like this. Something like that. And I think the lines are pretty thin, so I'm going to go into the earth and go into the lines and increase the size to 0.8 or something. Yep, that looks much better. You can also play around with the particles in Y to get more lines, just like so, depending on your personal preference. I'm just going to leave it at 10. So let's select the camera, hit U, so you can see the keyframes go to 6 seconds, just like that. And then also hit A 2 times to turn on the depth of field. Also play around the focus distance again, so I'm going to go to 3 seconds. That is right over here, and I bring down the focus a bit closer, just like that. Or maybe what I can do is I can start from a bit lower angle, so I'm going to go to 3 seconds. I'm going to place the earth somewhere around here, and then go to 6 second. Actually delete the keyframe, go to 6 second, and I'm going to go move it a bit to the top. So let's see our animation. So as you can see, it's looking really interesting, pretty cool. Now let's go ahead and create our third camera angle. So let's go to 6 second, hit Ctrl Shift D to split the layer, hit U so we can see the keyframes and get rid of the keyframes. And then what I'm going to do is place the earth in the center, just like that. Also hit A 2 times and turn off the depth of field. Make this, push this back in Z space. Just place it in the position that we want. Place it somewhere around there. Just like so. So now it's in the center. Okay, this is the final position of the complete animation. So let's go to 10 seconds, create a keyframe on focus distance and hit P to bring down the position properties, create a keyframe also on the point of interest. So now let's hit U so we can see all the keyframes that we created. Now let's go back in time to 6 seconds and zoom in a little bit, or maybe too high, just like so. Also, I'm gonna turn on the depth of field and bring the focus distance really close, just like so. Something like this. So now when it goes at 10 seconds, let's increase the focus distance so that the earth is in focus, just like so. Okay, so there we have it. Now the earth is constantly in focus throughout the animation. Let's hit U so we can see all the keyframes. So let's go and select all the keyframes. Hit F9 to easy ease those keyframes. Go to graph editor, select these points and drag this handle holding shift and control to be precise, and drag this just like so. So now we have a pretty fast zoom out animation, just like that. As you can see, nice and subtle, looking very nice. Now what I can do is let's add some life to our complete scene. So let's actually go into the earth layer, onto the earth layer, and let's add some glow to this. Also I'm going to play around with the glow threshold a bit, increase the glow radius just like that, and we can play around with the intensity a little bit. So now our scene looks more interesting, as you can see, because of the glow. And then let's create a new solid. So hit Ctrl Y to create a new solid, and let's call this optical flares. Let's add optical flares to this and set the blending mode of the layer to screen. Go into options, clear all, and we just need the glow, so hit OK, and also make this 3D so it's in 3D space. And right over here hit Ctrl Shift H so we can see all the controllers, and I'm going to place it just in the position that I want. So let's place it and increase this. Actually, also I'm going to change the color to something like a really nice bluish purple color, something like that, you know. It's looking really nice. As you can see, it's interacting with our camera, which looks very interesting. You can select this and place it in the position that I want. So I'm going to place it somewhere around there, maybe something like that, and increase the brightness a bit, just like so. It's looking very, very nice. I'm going to duplicate this, so hit Control D to duplicate it, and then select the layer and also change the color to something like an orangish yellow color, something like that, and place it. Select the position XY and place it somewhere around here. So as you can see, it's looking very, very intense. I'm going to bring down the scale a bit, also play around with the brightness a little bit, and place it somewhere around here. So as you can see, it's looking very, very interesting. Now to get better glows, you can switch to 16 bits per channel. So hold Alt and click on this icon, and then you'll get some really nice and depth in your glow. And what I'm going to do is at the end, I'm going to create a new adjustment layer, and let's call this noise, and add some noise to this, very minimal, like 3%, just to make it look more, you know, realistic, like it's shooted from a real camera, because it is just looking too clean. So the noise will make it look more, you know, natural and organic. So let's preview our complete animation once. So there we have it, our complete animation, looking very nice and colorful, and I hope you learned something new today. So that is a wrap, guys. I hope this video was helpful, and I will see you in the next video. Till then, take care, and thank you so much for watching, guys.